Good evening, everybody. This is the Culturally Responsive Instruction and Behavior Support Practices presentation that I spent some time reflecting on and putting together to inform the Board of Education as well as any patrons that are here about the things that are happening inside of our district. Okay. I want to give you a little bit of a roadmap of the things that we'll be discussing today in my presentation. First, I want to talk about critically responsive instruction in USD 107. I want to move on to our building leadership and district leadership teams. I want to talk about the level of impact. Then we're going to move on to culturally responsive instruction, some behavior support practices, and then we're going to end with benefits and methods. So first, starting off with culturally responsive instruction that we see here in USD 107 as our district. So I'm going to start by breaking it down by elementary building and the junior senior high building. So in our elementary building, we see things like positive behavior intervention systems, second step, which is our social and emotional curriculum. We have both our STEM Wonders, which is our reading curriculum, math curriculums all together. We have these curriculums that we have, they allow for diverse learning, differentiation, and multiple methods for sharing and completing your work. Our students also are exposed to music from many different cultures, art, and our library features several stories and authors in it that any student would be able to identify with. Now moving over to our high school building, they offer Boys Town for behavior management. While this is different than PBIS, it still focuses on appropriate behavior and socially responsible answers, thus preparing students for the years that will happen after high school. The high school curriculums also offer diverse learning and multiple methods for sharing and completing work. I wanted to mention our school's use of Zello. While it is an online platform, we are definitely aware of that some students do benefit from the Zello experience as it allows them to provide for their family in a way that they need to. Our students also have access similar to the elementary for music, art, and library. Moving on to who is responsible for seeking out students who would benefit from these practices. And as I mentioned here, I say our BLT and our DLT. Again, BLT is our building leadership team that meets twice a month, and our district leadership team, they meet once a month. The goal of both of these teams are to create better systems, buildings, and discuss student achievement. While mentioning and reaching out about possible students who would benefit from these practices is not limited to BLT and DLT, it is something that I would expect every staff, faculty member, and teacher administrator to do, is to notice these kids and then maybe mention it to the BLT or DLT about, hey, I feel like we're not including this student. What can we do to change that? It really is our job to communicate the needs that those families have and how we can best help them. And by communicating those needs to other teachers, BLT and DLT, we can help assist those families every year. That way they're not continually falling through the cracks. So when we talk about the level of impact, we want to acknowledge that culturally responsive classroom buildings and communities are not just for the benefit of the student. They truly do benefit all those that are involved, and here are just a few ways that our faculty is positively impacted. For one, they get to connect with their own biases that they may or may not be aware of. They can connect their experiences and think about how they are similar or different from other experiences. And then the thing about culturally responsive instruction and learning and development is that it's continuous learning, and we never stop trying to learn more, grow more, and include more people. So for our students, we will really see a ripple effect of culturally responsive learning because they're going to take that stuff home with them and teach their parents. It allows them to build off of their true experiences. We can create a willingness for the desired behaviors that we want, and we can ultimately increase academic performance. Who isn't involved and should be? So really, unfortunately, it's the Board of Education that I feel like isn't as invested as teachers and staff members are. However, you just might not be aware of all that is happening in our district to make sure that students, staff, and faculty members, families, communities all feel welcome and represented in our district. And that's part of the reason behind this presentation today, is to truly make you aware of what is happening in our district currently. The same thing kind of goes with the site council. This really is a new initiative in our district, and I wouldn't expect anything different at this point in time. Much like with the board, their knowledge will improve, and their involvement and understanding of how they can continue to support our minoritized students and staff will continue to improve the longer that it's implemented in our district. So how can I be a culturally inclusive educator? Well, right here is a list of 10 culturally responsive instructional methods that teachers can readily use in their classrooms. Like create a classroom culture that is welcoming for all learners, provide students choice on assignment, create lessons that connect to the content in your students' culture and daily lives, present content in multiple forms like videos, manipulatives, things like that. Intentionally address the visual, tactile, and auditory learners in lessons. Allow students to collaborate and work in groups. Communicate and work with parents or guardians on a regular basis. You can do this through email, newsletters, phone calls, notes, meetings, and it might be different for every family, and acknowledging that. You can use instructional materials that relate to a variety of cultures. Students support each other for the success of the entire class, and then include multiple question formats on assessments. When we think about the behavior support practices, we want to have a wide array, but things that are going to impact every student in a positive way. And here are 10 that I came up with. We can adopt and use with fidelity a social and emotional learning curriculum. This is being done at the elementary, but I don't see it being done at the high school level. We can have staff engage in emotional recognition and management with students. We can have staff work on positive goal setting for students, encourage students to use their empathetic thinking. We can model and teach positive relationship development. And I think that modeling portion right there is so important because we want to model it from staff to students and from staff to staff. We can help teach students the responsible decision making. We can have a positive behavior intervention system. Again, this is being done at the elementary, but not so much at the high school. We can use true experiences to teach and learn from. We can eliminate our zero tolerance policies, and we can continue to have high expectations for all students. I want to talk just a bit on eliminating the zero tolerance policies because this is something that I truly am pretty passionate about. I think that we need to be well on our way to eliminating those zero tolerance policies. And really the thought behind this is that with a zero tolerance policy, there is no lesson or learning behind the student who is suspended or expelled. Students who typically struggle academically, those are the ones that we're going to see act out, and they're going to be the ones that have the behavior that would land them on a zero tolerance policy and out of our building. That would prevent them from coming to school and impede their education even more so. We need to use those times as teachable moments for students as well. And we know that zero tolerance policies have not proven to make schools any safer. So who would benefit from these behavior practices and the culturally responsive instruction? English language learners, the minoritized student, staff, faculty, and community members, students with special needs or disabilities, and then our low-income students. Which ones do I believe are most effective and ready to implement? So I definitely think that positive relationship development is high on my list. And the other one that I picked out was creating classroom environments that are inclusive for all learners. So these are the two that I picked out and I think would be the most effective and that we're ready to implement. I think that they're both important at the elementary and the high school level. By teaching and modeling positive relationship development, we can prepare students for their future outside of school, as well as how they can interact with others as they move on to a new building after elementary school. I know that all of our staff is capable of creating classroom environments that feel inclusive for all learners. I also know that this isn't an immediate shift and that our teachers will need professional development and guidance on acknowledging their own biases and pulling from their own experiences. However, this is something that I want to move forward within our district. These are the references. Thank you very much for your time tonight and have a good evening.